Alright, this is a comparison between the Garmin Edge US version, which is on the left, and the Garmin Taiwan version, which is on the right. Both of these Garmin Edges are physically the same, with all the components being the same as well. The only difference is that the Garmin US version has a different firmware than the Garmin Taiwan version. And if you're wondering, you cannot flash the firmware from the US version to the Taiwan version. Now, in terms of firmware, there isn't that much difference between both Garmin Edges, with the only subtle differences in terms of the menu layout. So, one thing to note is that when you power up the Garmin Edge 500 for the US version, you hear a beep that it's on, that it lets you know that it's on, whereas the Garmin Taiwan does not beep. So here we go, let's boot it up and I'll show you the differences. The beep was from the left, which was the US version, and it's a silent operation for the Taiwan version. Both have about the same boot up speed as well, except the Taiwan seems to be just a hair faster. Again, this is a 2-year-old Garmin Edge 500, and this is a more recent version. Alright, so let's go ahead and take a look at the firmware. Oops. And hang on. There we go. Scroll down to settings. Hit enter. About Edge. Alright, so the Garmin Edge on the US version is the current version 3.3, and both have the current GPS 2.6 GPS firmware update. The Taiwan version is the current 3.1, and this addressed one of the issues of the disappearing maps, which has plagued the Taiwan version for over a year. So basically, if you started a course and then you started cycling through the menu, the course function would actually disappear. So the Taiwan software engineers finally fixed that problem. So anyway, this is 3.1, 2.6, and that's pretty much it. Oops. Yeah. So you cannot flash the firmware version between these two. You cannot flash the firmware from the US and to the Taiwan and so forth. But all in all, the menu and layout are the same. The only difference is that the only difference is the slight boot up change, and that you have to download the firmware for the Taiwan version through the Taiwan version website. Alright, so again, small details. If you look at the bottom left hand corner, you can see the date, the year, the month, and the date on the bottom left, which is different from the US version, which is on the bottom right. Battery is on the bottom right. Battery is on the middle for the US version, and the time is in the middle as well. So if you're looking at this one, at the Taiwan version, obviously if you try to glance at the time, you can't really read it, as opposed to the US version, it's like right there on the bottom left hand corner. It's sort of jumbled right here, so it's just like, is it 4:11 or is it 11:32 and 33? Yeah. So upon quick glance, it's harder to read the time, and I really think that the Garmin Edge team should have just implemented the single firmware across the board for the Garmin Edge 500. But again, it's probably a financial deterrence to offer the Taiwan version at a cheaper cost because it's using a different firmware, although all of the features are pretty much the same. But again, the Garmin Edge 500 has, I believe it's hit its end of life. The new Garmin Edge 510 is out on the market, and it offers touchscreen and GPS or Bluetooth capability, but the Garmin Edge 500 is still a very sweet device. Anyway, that pretty much is it between these two devices. Again, the menu layout is the same. In terms of speed and functionality, both are about the same. And yeah, that is a comparison between the two Garmin Edge 500 GPS units. Thanks for looking.